The last time Alma heard the word love, it was from her grandmother, whispered in Quechua as they stirred corn over fire, before her parents found out she could not bear children. After that, silence took over the house. Then came the day when her father's eyes looked past her, and her mother's lips pressed into a line of shame. She was 17. They told her she was being given to a merchant family in exchange for livestock. But Alma knew it was a sale. She wasn't crying when she left. The tears had already been shed in the quiet months prior, when she overheard her mother say, "De que serve una mujer que no puede dar vida? What good is a woman who cannot give life?" They took her across the border, sold again, and passed from one household to another, an invisible ghost moving dishes and scrubbing floors. Every family wanted a different version of her, docile, hardworking, silent. But none wanted her. The real her. Until the day she ran. She didn't know where she was going. Only that she was done being traded like currency. She walked for days across the desert, her feet blistered, her heart numb, her spirit flickering like a candle in the wind. It was in Arizona where the wind shifted. A storm had rolled in fast, cruel and loud, and Alma collapsed under the weight of exhaustion just off a dusty reservation road. She didn't expect to wake up. But she did, to a drumbeat. The rhythmic beat echoed through her bones before her eyes opened. When they did, a tall man stood above her, his skin bronze like burnished earth, hair long and graying. 3 children, 2 boys and a little girl, stood behind him, quiet as the wind. "You're lucky I found you," the man said, his voice low but not unkind. Alma tried to sit up. Her body screamed. He reached out a hand. "I'm Tahoma," he said. "These are my kids." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Warmth. That was how it began. Tahoma was not like the others. A widower of Apache descent, he lived on the edge of the San Carlos reservation, raising his children alone in a modest adobe home with a crooked porch and wind chimes that sang in the afternoon sun. He didn't ask Alma for anything. Not her history. Not her labor. Not her body. He simply offered food, a place to rest, and, eventually, a purpose. "I could use help with the little one, if you're staying," he said one morning as the youngest clung to Alma's leg, her dark eyes full of trust. Alma nodded. She didn't know why, but her hands felt steadier when they held the girl's tiny ones. Her breath came easier in this house filled with music, laughter, and simple kindness. She stayed. Weeks turned into months. Alma began tending a small garden, teaching the children Spanish lullabies her grandmother once sang. She repaired broken shelves, repainted the kitchen, and carved pieces of herself into the cracks of the home, not to belong, but to heal. One day, while folding laundry, the oldest son, Mika, asked her bluntly, "Are you our new mom?" Alma's heart stuttered. "No," she said gently, "I'm just someone who loves you." Mika nodded, accepting that answer with a wisdom beyond his years. But it was Tahoma's quiet presence that became the most profound balm. He never pried, never demanded. Some nights they sat in silence under the stars, watching coyote silhouettes dart across the hills. "I lost my wife 4 winters ago," he said one night, voice hoarse. "She gave me life. Not just the children. Me. I thought I'd lost my fire too." Alma understood. Her fire had nearly gone out once. But here it flickered, steady. They weren't lovers. Not yet. Not exactly. But in the in-between moments, in the way he handed her tea before she asked, or the way her fingers brushed his when passing salt, they were something sacred. And then came Rosa. A girl no older than Alma had been when she was sold. Found in a police raid, silent and wide-eyed, alone in the world. The reservation foster system was overwhelmed. Tahoma, without hesitation, said yes. "We'll take her." Alma was stunned. "We?" "You," he said, looking at her gently. "If you want. If you're ready." It hit Alma then, not as a burden, but as a miracle. She, once deemed useless for being infertile, was now being entrusted with the healing of another soul. Not by force. Not because of blood. But because of love. Rosa took time. Months before she spoke a full sentence. But Alma saw herself in her, the quiet flinches, the distrust of warmth, the way she always sat near the door. Alma taught her how to braid, how to cook tortillas, how to laugh without apology. Rosa blossomed like desert sage after rain. The neighbors whispered. Some with admiration. Some with suspicion. He took in another girl, they'd say. And she's not even his wife? But the family ignored the noise. The community changed, slowly. Others started to notice how Alma greeted the elders in both Spanish and Apache. How she showed up with baked goods and always had a kind word for every child. How her laughter no longer sounded like something she borrowed. One spring, Tahoma's middle son stood up during a community event and called her Nokomis, the Apache word for grandmother spirit, a term of deep respect. But I'm not your blood, she whispered, moved. You are, he said. Not from before. But from now. That night, as the fire crackled and the stars sang in the sky, Tahoma turned to her and asked, Do you know what you've done? Alma shook her head. You've given more life than anyone I've ever known. And that was when she broke. The dam she'd built in her soul cracked wide, and all the years of abandonment, of shame, of being made to feel like less than a woman, poured out. But she didn't fall. She stood tall in it, in the truth of what she had built here. A family not forged by blood or expectation, but by choice, kindness, and the courage to love again. Years passed. The children grew. Rosa became a teacher. Mika studied tribal law. The house gained new rooms, new stories, and more wind chimes. Alma and Tahoma never officially married. They didn't need to. Their bond was stitched into everything around them. Alma never bore a child. But she raised 5. Helped heal dozens. And rekindled her own fire. And in the end, what is motherhood if not the act of creating life in others? Not through biology, but through belief. Through standing beside someone when the world walks away. Through showing up. Again and again. She was once sold for what she couldn't give. Now, she is remembered for everything she gave freely. And that was more than enough. Final note. Sometimes, the family we're born into cannot see our worth. But the family we choose, and who choose us in return, that's where true love begins. Alma's story is a reminder that even in our brokenness, we can be a source of light. That kindness can rebuild lives. That love doesn't require permission. Only courage. So if you've ever been told you're not enough, remember Alma. And believe again.